Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I was talking to an old friend I haven't heard from in ages, and they brought up this story, so I thought I'd share it. I used to work at Dillard's in a children's department, so I saw my fair share of entitled behavior from our customers, but this incident happened to my co-worker. A customer was browsing around with her 4 to 5-year-old son. He was running around, knocking things off racks and so on. The mother made no effort to control him until he crashed into her a couple of times. She told him to go sit in one of the chairs by the dressing rooms. The chairs were pretty nice and upholstered in a silk-like fabric. My co-worker was removing garments left in the changing rooms, and as she passed by the little boy, she noticed he was pushing a small car. Think Matchbox-style car, all over the back of the chair, and it was shredding the fabric. She spoke to the boy and asked him not to do that. He responded by blowing a raspberry at her and pushed the car with even more force. She went to the mother and said, "Your son is destroying the chair with his little car. Could you speak to him?" Which is way nicer than I would have put it. The mother stopped and stared at my co-worker. They stood there just looking at each other for what my co-worker described as too long and very awkward. Finally, the mother asked, "So?" My co-worker started saying, "Well, could you?" And before she could even finish the sentence, the mother slapped her across the face with the hangers she was holding. She hit her so hard, it broke a hanger. Now I would have beat the crap out of that woman right then and there. Job be screwed. My co-worker just turned around and went to find our manager. She first encountered an off-duty police officer who worked security in a store and is a close friend of mine, and she told him what happened. He went with her to the manager. The manager went over to the mother, listened to her rant, apologized her for the misunderstanding, and gave her a 10% discount for her troubles. My co-worker was so stunned she couldn't even speak. Even the cop was saying what the hell just happened. The cop turned to my co-worker and asked if she wanted to press charges. Before she could answer, the manager interrupted, saying that wouldn't be necessary. Meantime, all the other employees in the department are watching all this go down, and I had just walked back in from my break. I see my co-worker has a huge welt across her face and is bleeding under her eye. My co-worker told the cop she did in fact want to press charges. The manager told her she couldn't do that if she wanted to keep her job. She told him that was fine and she quit. The manager was still insistent that the mother not be troubled by all this. The cop said she could have put her eye out and I'm arresting her. If you don't like it, you can't take it up with my commander. The entitled mother was still acting smug until she saw the cuffs. Then she started screaming the usual nonsense. "I am going to sue all of you, I'll have your badge, do you know who I am?" and so on. No one but the manager cared and she still went to jail. All of the other employees and customers who were watching clapped as she was being led out of the store in cuffs. The manager started in on the employees about how to correctly deal with situations like what had happened. We all looked at each other and without saying a word, we all clocked out and left. All of us. Good luck running the entire department by yourself. We hung around our injured co-worker until she was done with a police report and then took her to lunch. She said she'd been planning to apply at a different store in the same mall anyway, but hadn't planned on quitting the way it happened. I worry that Dillard's would give her bad reference now. We convinced her to go to the other right then, injured face and all. She explained what happened to the manager there, and she was hired on the spot and told her they don't put up with crap like that. If a customer hits you, no matter who they think they are, charges will be filed and will be permanently banned from the store. I spoke to my cop friend a few days later and he said the crazy woman nearly drove him insane with her screaming and threats on the way to the jail, which wasn't close. After she saw that wasn't working, she started with pleading and bribery. He said he didn't think he'd ever been so glad to hand someone off to booking. All this happened ages ago, and since that day, I've never stepped foot in a Dillard again. So a few years ago, I worked as a valet for one of the biggest hotel chains in the world. It was the best job I ever had in regards to the pay. I took home thousands of dollars a month. It may not sound like a lot, but I was 20, so it was a big deal for me. I had started in the summer. Come winter of the same year, it's 2 days before Christmas and relatively slow. There's me and one other person working the front drive. I tell him I want to go home early, so he goes for his break. Out of nowhere, a truck comes speeding around the corner and pulls into the driveway and stops in a way that would impede traffic. I take a gander but decide not to approach, as they don't appear to need any help, and they didn't bother rolling down the windows or exiting the car. A few minutes goes by and a car pulls up behind the truck. I approach the car, offer the driver assistance, and provide directions to the garage. However, the truck still has not moved. So, I approach to ask them to pull to the side. When I approach, the driver does not roll down the window, so I tap on it. The windows are tinted incredibly darkly. I am greeted by a mumbled voice, so I asked if they can roll the window down so I can hear better. Down comes the window, and I'm greeted by this troll doll of a woman. "What the hell do you want? Don't touch my car!" Shocked, I politely ask her to pull forward. She rolls the window back up and stays in place. I tap on the window again, but now she's getting out of the car. She puts her chest to mine, or to my abdomen at least. I'm almost a foot taller than her, and she proceeds to try to push me back, all while screaming profanities in my face and making threats. I am remaining calm, not letting her get to me, all while asking her to get away from me and leave me alone. She continues trying to back me down. After a few moments, I extend my arms to create space between us, and she attacks. Now, I know how this might sound to those of you that are skeptical, and I assure you it was the gentlest extension of my arms I could muster. I made sure I didn't shove her or push her down in any way. She returned swinging at my face, scratching and punching me. She had knocked my glasses from my face, threw stomach punches, and at one point even grabbed my leg like she wanted to take it with her. Now I'm upset. Still doing my best to keep my cool, I defend myself and put her in a front-facing headlock and restrain her until help arrives. In the mix of the whole incident, her daughter attacked me from the back as well with punches and an attempted headlock, but I proved to be too resilient. Told my job I was going home for the day, went to press charges and to seek medical attention. Returned to work the next day to be suspended pending an investigation. All while being assured by my manager, "Yeah man, don't even worry about it. It's just corporate dumb rules." Mind you, the entire incident was filmed by the hotel security cameras, so I had no reason to lie or feel like my job was in any danger. Subsequently, got fired for said incident, and had assault charges brought against me from my assailants. We go to court and these witches don't even have lawyers. Sitting in a courtroom laughing and making snide remarks. My defense lawyer had subpoenaed the tapes and brought them in as evidence, which had the charges against me immediately drop. But that's not all. Now the DA had picked up assault charges against the two of them. They are offered the probation before judgment and turned it down in favor of a jury trial, all the while still coming to court laughing and giggling, being represented by a public defender. Case goes to trial. Jurors are shown the video which completely backs my story and destroys theirs. This witch is still lying, insinuating I just walked up to her and assaulted her and her daughter. Come to find out, this is her 4th time being tried for assault and she has never been to jail. She gets convicted of 2nd-degree assault, and I'm invited to give testimony at her sentencing trial. I have no criminal record, had a full-time job, and I'm a full-time student, and had a beautiful baby girl less than a week after being suspended and fired from my job. The witch got 2 years and they cuffed her in court. When a realization that crap just got real for her hit, she begins to cry and sob and look around as if looking for help. It was at this time, me and her had locked eyes across the courtroom. I proceeded to stare this witch in the face and do a full-fledged victory dance on my seat as they carried her away. When I was in high school back in the late 90s, one of my teachers shared a story with the class in order to explain why we would have a substitute teacher next week. This is by far my favorite story in the vein of malicious compliance. My teacher was in his late 30s, married for only a couple of years, and over the summer, he and his wife bought their first house together. As is typical, the house was in a development that had an HOA. While he wasn't thrilled at the idea of a middling HOA, it is a necessary and unavoidable evil. He went through their CCRs with a fine-tooth comb and decided that while there was some stuff he wasn't a fan of, overall he could live with it. So they signed the papers and bought the house. About a week after they move in, they get a non-compliance letter stating that the tree in their front yard was not an approved species and must be removed. Problem is the tree was native to that spot. Was estimated at 80 to 100 years old and was a pecan. I mention the type for two reasons. First, a pecan produces nuts, obviously, and that is why the HOA said it can't be in the front yard. After all, a lawnmower flings a rogue pecan through a neighbor's window and there will be an issue. The second issue is that this was in the Dallas, Texas area. The pecan is a state tree of Texas and as such gets a little legal protection. Basically, to cut one down, you need to have a permit. To get that permit, you have to show the tree is diseased or a hazard. Just being in the way is not sufficient. My teacher is upset as the tree is large, provides lots of shade, and he likes eating pecans. He writes back to the HOA who turn a deaf ear and point to the CCR and refer him to their legal team for any further questions. He then contacts the county and state, who both come back with he can't remove the tree without a permit or he will face a large fine and/or jail. He copies that letter and sends it along with his own letter in a certified envelope to the HOA lawyers. The lawyers come back that the CCR is binding. He is not allowed to have fruit or not producing trees in his front yard. But ornamental trees of flowers and flower pots, this part is important, are fine. If it's not removed in 30 days, they will begin fining him. At this point, he gets his own lawyer and turns it over to him. A couple of months go by and we are to the part of the story where he is explaining why there will be a substitute. He will be going to court to have a judge weigh in on this matter. The next week comes and after the court hearing, he comes in and says that basically he lost as the judge ruled the CCR did apply and the tree had to go. However, since it was a native tree at the time of development, the HOA would be responsible for all costs of removal, not him as the homeowner. Now, most people probably would have let it go at this point. Sure, you lost the tree, but it isn't costing you anything. Not my teacher though. The man decided it was time to protest the overreaching HOA and their absurdity. So, he got to reading. After going through the CCR thoroughly, he took a trip to Home Depot and bought some hose, fittings, and a nice color toilet. He set the toilet up in the middle of the yard right where the tree had been and ran the hose and fittings to his outside faucet so that it was hooked up for water in. Not hooked to a sewer, this is a front yard after all. He then dumped some potting soil in a bowl and planted some decorative flowers. It took a few weeks, but the non-compliance letter came in stating that he had house waste in the front yard and it must be removed within 72 hours or he will be fined. He wrote back there was no house waste. They responded again and he stated they needed to come show him where the supposed waste was. The next day an HOA guy comes out and points right at the toilet and says it cannot be there. It's an eyesore. My teacher responded, "Sorry you feel that way about my self-watering flower pot, but I see nowhere in the CCRs that state what style of flower pot is or isn't allowed." HOA guy gets verbally heated and threatens to call the cops too, which my teacher agrees. Having his bluff called, the HOA guy leaves. A week or so goes by and the class I'm in is pestering our teacher every day for new stories on this. He said he got a letter from their lawyers which he sent straight to his lawyer. His lawyer agreed with him that the CCR in no way, shape or form puts any qualifiers or limitations on flower pots, and as the flowers are clearly visible, it doesn't constitute debris or trash in a yard. A few back and forth things happen between the lawyers and then the HOA moves for trial, which gets the same judge as before. The judge reviewed the case and dismissed it as frivolous. He did put in his remarks or decisions something along the lines of, while the defendant's choice of a flower pot is eye-raising and isn't traditional, there is nothing illegal about his use of a commode as art in his yard. The plaintiff has failed to demonstrate any sound reason this would violate existing rules and bylaws of their association. I work at a non-profit that helps sick people. We provide various services to clients including supplements, and each client that starts services gets a really nice care package, and all the clients rave about them. One day my coworker took a call from someone that was mad he hadn't received his supplements. My coworker explained the process to receive them, but the client didn't listen. He was really rude, then he hung up. A day later I got a call from the same client. He was angry we had delivered the care package because he wanted supplements. He still had not filled out the form to get them. He stated that the care package was garbage and he didn't want our garbage and we needed to get him his supplements. He stated he didn't want the care package and we should only send him supplements. I decided to bluff. I told him I was sorry that he felt that his care package was garbage and we will be happy to send out a volunteer to take it back. He said no, he will throw it away. I insisted we would take it back. I stated I didn't want him to feel like we were just leaving garbage for him to deal with, and we will remove our garbage so he doesn't have to. He said no. I said I will have someone come by later today. He said please don't take it back. I actually really liked it. I just really wanted my supplements. He calmed down and listened while I explained to him that he had to fill out the form. Later that week he turned in the form and got his supplements.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.